Hello and welcome to And Read Another Chapter. So, I still got a few days before the end of the month, but with the way time has been, I decided that now was the appropriate time to talk about the books I've been reading recently. And because I got a stack here. Alright, so we're going to just jump right on in and yeah, let's do this. I have limited time, which is why I'm filming some of this stuff now, because I just never know what the day's going to be like. Alright, let's start with an audiobook that I actually read a few months ago, and I keep forgetting to talk about it. And it's one that I really want others to know about, because I didn't hear about this, I think, until I was reading another book, actually, and it came up in there. And that book is The Red Thumb by R. Austin Freeman. Now, I heard about this in connection with Sherlock Holmes, and it was apparently that they were kind of contemporaries of the same time. Now, we've heard of Sherlock Holmes. I had never heard of this guy before. I went on eBay, and his books are expensive. Oh my goodness. I looked on my Libby app, I looked through my libraries. It was actually my library back in California that had an audiobook for this book. So I rented it, which also took time to get because there was a wait list for that. So why isn't this book more well known? I would love to know. Anyway, this is kind of the cute little boy. This is kind of the book that I think of when Sherlock Holmes kind of deals into more of the eliminate the improbable until all you have left is the probable, or something to that effect. The quote's right here. I always butcher those. Anyway, he kind of delves into that, and he takes you through the mystery with that philosophy. That's kind of how you figure out his mysteries. And just turn my sound off so I'm not distracted. And in a different way, R. Austin Freeman wanted to kind of do more scientific aspect than what Sherlock Holmes did. And so he's a forensic, like the early forensic mystery thing. In The Red Thumb, there is a irrefutable thumbprint that it has to be this guy. He's the one that stole this artifact. It's him, right? No doubt about it. They have his thumbprint. But what Dr. Thorndyke, oh wait, is it Dr. Thorndyke? See, now I'm getting, I think it's Dr. Thorndyke. Yeah, I kept wanting to say Dr. Wassel earlier, and that's a whole different ball of wax. But Dr. Thorndyke basically kind of uses forensic scientists and shows how, even though it's a clear thumbprint, there's other factors at play. And you kind of go through, like there's an attempted murder, there's some other characters in here, and again, he still kind of brings in his sidekick, Dr. somebody or another, that you got Sherlock with Dr. Watson, so Dr. Thorndyke is going to have a sidekick. And they kind of just work this all out. They kind of do a similar thing, like work out all the problems in the case until basically you have the conclusion of like the last quarter of the book, which is the courtroom scene. And I'm telling you right now, you read this book so you can get to that courtroom scene, because that was, oh, brilliant. Like 12 Angry Men and Witness for the Prosecution, and even to a certain extent, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and his final scene, and you're just like, yes, this is a very similar vibe court scene. It's just, oh, it is so good. And I really enjoyed it. I would love to have more. I'm not going to pay the prices that they want for these books, but really enjoyable. See if your local library has it. Audible, I think, does carry them as well. Superb. I really enjoyed this. I probably would have gotten more into those than Sherlock Holmes, being real here. Alright, so let's get into some of the other books that I've read. We had some lighter ones this month, which makes my stack a little bit bigger and makes me feel a little bit better. I will have another review of this and another book soon on my Sodbuster channel. This is An Old-Fashioned Budget by Mrs. Sharon White, who has a blog, and a subscriber sent this to me. And this is really just what the title says. It is an old-fashioned budget. She gives old-fashioned tips. She kind of gives a mindset, directs you into a certain mindset. Whereas we have more of a consumer mindset, she goes back to the old principles of, you know, meeting the basic needs of the household. We don't have all these different categories. We have a household category because we have to meet the household budget, and we need to, if somebody needs clothes, it's not taken necessarily out of a clothes of budget, it was taken out of a savings account. Because it wasn't something that they would need on a day-to-day basis. The day-to-day basis was the food, clothing, well, clothing, was, you know, your food, shelter, your bills. So, it was very interesting. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, not because it's, you know, wrong or anything. Just, there's not a whole lot you can really glean out of this. It was interesting. It kind of, there was definitely things that I took away, and I have notes on here about that. But as a whole, I'm not sure how useful this will be in today's world for the average run of your meal. I think if we kind of run with the way she's doing things, I don't think, I don't know if everybody can do that. Just, we're in different lifestyles, and I believe at this point she is living with just her and her husband, and even kind of, back in the day with the family, it was back in the day. I don't disagree with a lot of her things. I pretty much kind of run by them, but it's definitely to a specific crowd, I guess is what the overall line will be there. Now, I did not read this month The Quiet Little Woman by Louisa May Alcott. It's one of my favorites by Louisa May Alcott. She's just a very sweet, generous girl, and kind of the whole real meaning of Christmas in here. You know, it's not so much what you can get as much as what you give, not necessarily in gift value, but from your heart. Anyway, I had this one growing up as a child, and then I found at a thrift store this one, and I had never seen this before. So obviously they were doing a reprint at some point, even by different publishers. This is River Oak, and this is Honor Books. So I'm curious to know if there's anything else. But in the same tradition, it says in the back, it's in the same tradition as the best-selling Quiet Little Woman, is pleased to present another Louisa May Alcott treasure. And Kate's Choice, I think we have 3 stories in here as well. Yeah. And Kate's Choice is obviously the main one, just as in we have more than one story here, but The Quiet Little Woman is our main one. But Kate's Choice is, she comes from England, I believe. Her father is dead. She's going to visit different parts of her family and figure out which one she's going to live with indefinitely. And is she going to choose the family that kind of brings out her personality? Is she going to choose like the more strict family? Who is it? And the answer is not going to surprise you, honestly, when you read the story and you find out a little bit more. It just goes right on in. Then there's, I don't remember the middle one. I remember the last one, What Love Can Do. I don't remember this one at all. Okay, yes I do. What Love Can Do. What Love Can Do is also a Christmas story. I think these are all Christmas stories, now that I think about it. I think they were released in a magazine that Alcott actually had published. But the second one is about 2 little girls. They're praying at night, wishing that they had a better Christmas. Somebody is hearing them in the next door, and she kind of contributes to making them have a Christmas present. And then there's a ripple down effect of everybody in this boarding house kind of thing, flat apartments, I guess is what we would think of them as today. And just what Christmas turns out for these little kids. And then the last one, which is Gwen's Adventure in the Snow. It's kind of a girl, they have a snow adventure, they're going to go sledding, and then a storm hits, they're at a farmhouse. Can she be brave enough to do all the things that she needs to do to take care of her family during a snowstorm? And again, it is very Alcott. Alcott does a really good job with writing children's stories with moral values without being preachy. And it's really hard to do in especially short stories. I think those ones got a little bit more on the preachy side than, let's say, Her Little Women or even Eight Cousins. But I still really enjoy them. I think they're wholesome, and the short stories really work well during the Christmas season if you're kind of incorporating you know, like Advent readings and things like that. Those would be great things. Anyway, like I said, I had never heard of Kate's Choice. I was really excited to get it, and I would love to know if they have more. I could not find any, but I never said I was a really good expert at research. Alright, then the next book that I finished was Love-Centered Parenting by Crystal Paine. I wasn't sure about this book, to be honest. I did want to read it. I had heard good things. I had heard some things about this book that made me want to read it, mainly how this book kind of came about. But I am not a gentle parent. I do not subscribe to that method of parenting. That doesn't mean that I'm a harsh parent parenting. I guess you would call me more of an old school parenting, but not as old school as some of it's complicated. But I was worried that this would kind of go more into the gentle parenting, more shepherding a child's heart than I tend to do. But I really didn't find that. I found it really enlightening to just kind of get some of her thoughts on, you know, what parenting should look like in the eyes of God. And then that doesn't necessarily mean that you choose one method over the other, where it wasn't so much going into should you spank your kids or not, should you do timeouts or not, but what consequences should look like, what going in deeper as for you as a parent and your walk with God should look like, and kind of go forward with the children in that. And I think it's kind of more of a parent journal rather than a parent how-to book, is more of what I took it as. She gave some tips that she's learned along the way, but I wouldn't use this as I have no idea how to parent. What do I do? Okay, here's the book, let me do it. I definitely think this is kind of more of a maturing that you've done as a parent and kind of need a encouragement, or maybe more of a growth. You know, maybe you've become stagnant, more as a growth. But I wouldn't necessarily use this as a parenting book. It was really good. I think I gave it 3.75 stars or 4 stars. Well, it would have been 4 stars on Goodreads. Let's see. Out of curiosity, what did I give this one? No, I gave it 4 stars. I think it was like a 3.75, which at that point for Goodreads I will round up to 4. So anyway, that was really good. I actually just, when I was done, I gave it to my husband and I said, I think some of this will be beneficial to you as well, so it would be worth reading. Alright, the next book I read is a chunker. Look at all those tabs. And that is Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. This was I just thought of something. Where is that? I need to check. I just realized I ordered something and it's not here. The next book for book club. This is was part of a book club that at one point my sister was part of, but now it's just me, my daughter, and a friend. We're possibly getting another person in there. I don't really know. But wow, this book, first of all, if you use Hoopla, please make sure if it's 4 hours, it is an abridged one, and I missed that the first time, so I listened to the whole thing and then realized a lot of the good stuff was cut out. And I didn't get it. This thing is like 16 hours, so in order for it to be abridged, they cut out 8 hours worth of content. That's just wrong. So, reread it. Wow, the notes on this. I have like a whole book of notes. Just I'm flinging myself all over here. I have a whole book of notes. I have a lot of tabs. Lots of things to think about this. Woof. Woof. To be honest, if you're gonna listen or read this, I would say set your timer for 45 minutes and just read. Because I think if you do any less, you're just not going to get your attention in. And if you do any more, you're going to get bogged down. 45 minutes for me, I'm not a big nonfiction reader. I think that should also probably be noted. Was a good time. I needed to break it about then. So this book, it's not so much about the Lewis and Clark expedition as much as it is the man Meriwether Lewis. It's the Lewis and Clark expedition was more or less the Lewis and Jefferson expedition. Lewis and Jefferson kind of really worked together, really tried to get this off the ground. Clark was only in the picture at the last minute, and he really wasn't as great a friend to Lewis until like closer and later in life. I want to say within a few months of meeting Clark that he knew he wanted him on this expedition, and then it wasn't that far in. I don't remember if it was a few months or whatever. But regardless, it was a very short amount of time, and he didn't really know him that well. And in order to get him the position he needed on the expedition, there was even a petition to get him as a captain, and I believe it was denied, but they didn't tell the men that. They just kind of acted as if the two were one authority in that. As a whole, I have to be honest, I really did not think I was going to get interested in this, and then I was really interested in it, really kind of delved in. Whew, there is a lot to unpack here. Just the amount of knowledge that they needed to know to kind of start this expedition, to chart, to do everything. How the expedition changed when circumstances showed that it was not going to work out the way that they had originally planned. And then all of the things that they added to it along the way, like the relations that they wanted with the Native Americans, with, trying to establish a good fur trade, and what this meant to America in the time to come. And even the transition that Lewis started, having kind of a mindset of making allies with the Native Americans to the point where, once he got to the end of his expedition, like at that point, he just became a completely changed man. It was like his high that he was riding just dropped, and he didn't care anymore about anything. It was basically, you join us or else. And he was making stupid decisions. He just was a completely different man. And they talk about how he had more depression type tendencies, and I kind of wonder if, riding that high and then getting to the point where you can't sustain it anymore. You've met what you're trying to meet, and it seemed to drop. And there was also a bunch of other things that I have personal things that add up that I think I'm right on. I don't know how to say that. Of why things ended the way they did. It's not even a conspiracy theory. It's just, I have thoughts, but it's not going to help anybody to get anything else out of that. So that's how it is. But you kind of get those thoughts and ideas while reading the book. And so whatever. Yeah. This is like over 500 pages. I'm really proud of myself. I will probably not read that again as something for myself. If my kids wanted to do it, I might do it with them. But yeah, that was a chunker, and I feel really good about myself reading that. And I walked away not feeling sorry that I did read it. You know how sometimes you just do and you're like, well, that was a waste of my time. I didn't feel like that for this one. The next two books that I read was Shatona Havig's Independence Island. Okay, they're both Independence Island. I want to say this is the one that started it all. This is the first book, Christmas on Breaker's Point. Wow. Yeah. You kind of know from the first page somebody is dying. Somebody that you are going to love is nearing his expiration date, as he says. And he has a Christmas wish. And that's what this book is about, and it's kind of establishing these islands. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. It's one of those that did leave me crying, and I'm not much of a crier, but reading this kind of made me really reflect on some people in my own life that I felt like Bud in here, just really aching to get them to know Christ. And I know what he was going through, and the emotions that are with that, not wanting to push them at Christ, but wanting them to know who he is, who he genuinely is, and the truth about him. So yeah, that was good. That was good. It's there's characters you're going to meet here, there's characters you're going to fall in love, and you know that you're going to see those characters kind of weaved throughout the other stories. And speaking of other stories, here's another one. This is Dual Power of Convenience. This is a weird trope book. So you have like your billionaire romance, you have your marriage of convenience, and you have fake marriage. And I think there's even another one in here, but at the same time, this doesn't fit any of it. And that's why I really liked it. Because I am not into the billionaire romance. I just, whatever. I like some marriage of convenience, some Bride for Dawn. Hold on. Okay, all's good. Okay. Where was I? Yeah, anyway. I did like Bride for Donegan, Janet Oak. I think there's some other ones that I enjoyed, but can't think of off the top of my head. But it doesn't even fit this one. Yeah. I have to say, Lila as a character, I didn't like. I didn't mind her, but I didn't like her. I didn't dislike her. I didn't mind her. I just didn't like her. And the same kind of is said for our main character that I can't remember. Richard. Richard, yeah. Should have gone for that. I didn't mind him, but what I did like about their relationship was a growth that they kind of come in as lukewarm Christians, and they kind of realize that they need to do something more, they need to be something more. And Mallory, who is like the main character of this one, and she kind of goes throughout the other ones, she gets on here and she gets on their butts or on their case or whatever you want to call it, and yeah, I liked that. So anyway, did enjoy this one. Probably not as much, actually no, not as much as this one, but for a billionaire romance as well as a all the tropes that I don't typically go for, Havig did a good job on that. Alright, and then the last one that I finished is Death in the Conjurer. Conjurer. This is by Tom Mead. I believe this is his debut novel. And if this is his debut novel, I need to know what else he writes, and I need to be a part of it because this was really good. I was not expecting that. But what it is kind of the inspector ends up taking on this ex-magician. I don't know if he's an ex-magician or just a magician. Loved it. And I think this talks about it really, really well. A tribute to the classic golden age whodunit, when crime fiction was a battle of the wits between writer and reader. And I have to say, I feel like that's it. So we have a locked room. Somebody is dead in a locked room. How did it happen? It's a razor to the throat without a razor blade around. So it was not, obviously not suicide. And there's just all these parts that kind of go with it. It is a psychiatrist. You have 3 of the patients that he was seeing. His daughter is trying to become a psychiatrist. Was any of them part of this? Did it have anything to do with like his past cases? What's going on here? Lot to uncover, a lot to delve into. In terms of gruesomeness, I really didn't think it was bad at all. It had that classic vibe of, yeah, this was the case, but it wasn't so graphic that you just are like, didn't need to know that. Language in here was very minimal. I believe there was a few words that was like, okay. There is some, like, Murder of Roger Ackroyd is mentioned in here. Some other novels are mentioned in here. Crime novels are mentioned in here. Really fun. It was really fun. Anyway, in terms of the mystery as a whole, I think for me it wasn't bad. It was well done, but I think he'll get better. Like, it's one of those that I'm like, okay, I think your execution is going to get a lot better the more you go along and the more you kind of figure this out. Wasn't bad, but I think it's going to get better. 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait to read more, please. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stack. I know I've got at least one more coming this way for a review. We'll see what happens and if I can get that done. But it is now time for me to get dinner before I gotta get to work. So, see you in the next clip or sometime soon. In the meantime, have another cup of coffee because I do need one. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up April's reading month with the final book that I finished, The Murder of Mr. Wickham. It's interesting because I had a higher praise for this book until I started talking about it with my friends, kind of not more or less trying to convince them that they needed to read it, but here's the things about it that bothered me. They kind of wanted to know more. And the more I talked about it, the more I was like, I was really generous with the star review that I gave that. So before I get into that, and because I want to make sure that I keep this video not too long and not talk too much about it, we're going to try to sweeten my words a little bit. This is the cactus candy that came in the subscription box that I just got. I uploaded that video recently. I believe this is, yeah, it's prickly pear cactus. I love prickly pear. So let's see what this is. That was really good. At first, like the first couple of bites, you're like, this is going to be one of those really, really sweet ones. And while it's sweet, it's not too sweet. That was really good. It reminds me, it doesn't taste like it, but it reminds me of Turkish Delight, which I really do like a good Turkish Delight. Okay, well, with that in my mouth, let's talk about this book. Okay, so, alright, The Murder of Mr. Wickham. So, this kind of takes place where all of the characters of Jane Austen's books come together for a house party that Emma and Mr. Knightley are hosting. Now, because of the dynamics of things, they actually have everybody in different aspects of when like the books were published, and so they're at different stages of their adult married life. So, for example, Darcy and Elizabeth have a full-grown son named Jonathan. Catherine Morland and Mr. Tilney, I can't remember his name. Is it John? I think it's John. Their daughter, who suddenly I can't remember. What is her name? Oh my goodness. Juliet, should remember that. Juliet, who is Catherine and the Mr. Tinley's daughter, is going to this house party, kind of invited by matchmaking Emma as possibly a companion for Jonathan Darcy, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy's son. You have Mary Ann and Colonel Brandon, kind of more newlywed at this point, and Anne and Mr. Wentworth, I think in the middle stages of they're married. I don't think that they're as new as Marianne and Brandon, but they are, but I believe Anne has a child. And there's another aspect of this, which is why, and it'll be kind of a spoiler, which is going to be really hard to do this book without spoilers. I'm just going to say that. But there's another aspect of it, which is why I'm a little confused if she really did or did not. Anyway, and then you've got the Bertrams, so Fanny and Edmund, and I do not believe they have any children. I think they've been married a few years in this book. So all of them are at this house party, and Wickham shows up in the middle of the night. And you kind of find out that he has done some things to upset many people here. It's not just Darcy and Elizabeth. You find out that Emma and Knightley, Wickham's had some dealings with their brother-in-law. The Wentworth have had some dealings with him, so he kind of did like this investment, and these investments went wrong, which affected Knightley's brother. It affected Wentworth. It affected, I think that's it, in terms of the investments. And then you kind of want, well, the Bertrams, do they really know Wickham at all? Were they involved in him at all? And then Colonel Brandon and Mary Ann, they don't really know him. And Juliet doesn't know him at all. And then Jonathan obviously knows Wickham from Wickham's dealings with his parents, him being the uncle. At this point, Lydia has passed away. Lydia had a daughter that the Darcys took in, and you kind of learn pretty early on that their biggest issue with Wickham is that when this daughter that they pretty much brought up, Susanna, because Wickham didn't want to, when Wickham saw that he was becoming attached to Darcy, he did not want that, and he ended up taking her while she was really sick, and she ended up dying. And so there's just that kind of aspect on top of everything else that Wickham did. That is kind of the setup. And then they find Wickham dead. So what the author did really well is that because Wickham has strong ties to Darcy's family, Jonathan is kind of pulled into this investigation basically for the name of his family, basically to kind of clear the name of the family, even though he knows his parents didn't do it, his words, to kind of show, to prove basically their innocence. So he's kind of pulled into that, whereas Juliet Tilney, I have a niece, Tinley, so now I'm getting stuck, Tilney, whereas Juliet Tilney has her mother's, like, draw for mystery and unknown and kind of, you know, that whole aspect of it. So she's kind of drawn into kind of figure out the truth, basically, so Churchill, the magistrate, doesn't just blame this on the gypsies or the servants. So that's kind of her reasoning as to why they're going to investigate this. And there's different aspects of this book that I thought were done well. Claudia Gray, in terms of like the, you know, as you kind of get more into this tension that is going on in the hall of this murder, you kind of have marriage issues that, you know, what happens after the happily ever after. you know, could this been something that they would have to resolve and have to deal with? And so, like Wentworth has basically his military temper, if you will, and Anne is very gracious in kind of deflecting his outbursts and kind of brings her kind of personality into it. So there's aspects of that I found were true to the characters, and even though Jane Austen never really kind of went more into that, it was interesting to kind of see what could possibly be stuff that was underlying that, you know, a murder and that tension and that stress kind of brings out, and things that they would have to work through. So I thought that was well done. Things that I really struggled with. First of all, it's important to note that my favorite Jane Austen character is Fanny Price, and that's not most people's favorite character. They see her as a mousy little wimpy person, whereas I see her as somebody that was brought up to know her place, so drilled into her constantly to know her place. But not only that, even in spite of all that, she learned how to pick her battles. She learned how to know what is right and stand for what is right, and what just wasn't worth fighting over. If people wanted to treat her that way, fine, whatever. It was kind of water off a duck's back until it compromised what she believed to be true. And she is, in terms of Edmund and Fanny, I think I could safely say that she was the stronger, more moral character. And in this book, it's obvious that this is the author's least favorite character. They almost have a Collins feel to them. And in a Elton way. I'm trying to think of how else to describe it. So, yeah, Anyway, we'll just kind of say, okay, obviously, it was obvious that this author did not like them, and wrote them just as meh characters. Fine, okay, whatever. That, you know, you get to a point where you're like, that's just going to be the majority of people taking Austen characters and imagining them in different stories. Fine, whatever. That actually, as much as I was like, oh, fine, what really bugged me is that there comes a point in here where Wickham is blackmailing Fanny over something that is completely out of Fanny's character. It was the way she handled it that was completely out of her character. Even to the point of when Edmund gets involved into it and how they work, it was not her, and it really bugged me. The whole what they were being blackmailed over is going to be a controversial subject in and of itself. It just didn't work for Fanny. Honestly, if this author had put it more, the blackmailing, into, say, Anne, I think that would have worked a whole lot better, but it did not work for the Bertrams at all. And it completely changed their character of who Austen would have done with it. And that's what really irritated me. Wickham, there's kind of a whole other aspect that then the more I was talking with my friend about it, I was like, this is just actually not working. And Wickham, you find out, has more ties to Willoughby and that aspect of it. And the more I was trying to like work this out, it was interesting what she was trying to do. It was not executed well. It just actually ended up not working at all. In my opinion. I know why the author put it in, but I don't think it worked. The more I was contemplating it and the more I was talking it out. I also vaguely remember that there was kind of an underlying mystery in here that never got answered. And I don't remember what it was. Call it lack of sleep, because that has been problematic these days. But I'm trying to remember. Okay, I didn't talk about what didn't get resolved. That was answered. That was answered. I feel like there was just something that didn't get resolved. Anyway, I did give it 4 stars. I think it's probably more like a 3.5. And again, I think if you're not a big Austen fan, this might be kind of a fun way to do it, because you're not going to be as invested into the characters and whether or not it's more authentic. So if that's the case, this might be a really good, fun one to read for you. But like I said, the more I talk about it and the more I discuss things, the more I'm like, I have some issues. In terms of red herrings and clues, that was done really well. I think there was a lot of really good red herrings that even I kind of missed. Even I, that sounds very self-righteous, but typically I can kind of see where a story is going to go. I just have to figure out the why, not necessarily the who. But the red herrings kind of made me really doubt some things. And honestly, with this book, I didn't go in trying to figure anything out, because it is Austen characters. In my mind, none of them would have been able to do it. Unless it was a duel, and in that case I would say Brandon. But yeah, no, anyway, that was not a clue or anything else there, just saying. Anyway, yeah, so that's it. That's going to be the wrap up for this month's reading. I've read more this month than I have read in a long time, and I know a lot of it is just being able, you know, with the job that I have to keep quiet. I have to stay near somebody, and the best thing to do at that point is just to read and try to stay awake. So, really, really happy for the amount of books that I got done and could weed off my shelves. The other book I will mention, I finished it in the first part of May, was Brave New World. It was a classic, and I'm glad to have checked that off. I will probably never read it again. I'm only mentioning it because I'm actually going to give it its own specific video, so that will be coming out soon, that I can say, yes, I have content going to come out in the near future. I don't do like, well, here's what I plan on reading in the month of May, and the reason is I am such a mood reader. I have tried so many times saying, okay, these are the books that I'm going to read, and actually want none of it. I do know that I do not like to read mysteries at night alone in a house with somebody sleeping next to me. I've learned that I don't like that, which I have learned. I've known that forever. I just sometimes need reminders that I don't read mysteries at night, and there is a reason. I can read them all during the day. Not a problem. Gruesome the better. Sure, why not? Actually, no. But at night, heck no. Heck no. So I'll have to kind of adjust some of the things that I had planned on reading, which was, I was going to be like, okay, this month I'm going to check out some Jamie Jo Wright. Heck no. I'm not reading that. No. Not at night. Not in this house. So we'll see when those get done. Alright, I'm going to shut up now. So, until next time we chat more about books and all that kind of stuff, have another cup of coffee and read another chapter.